The rain was falling hard against the window pane, a steady rhythmic drumming that usually soothes me, but that evening it sounded like a warning. A persistent tapping that demanded I pay attention to the man standing on the other side of the room. Julian stood by the fireplace, the flames casting long, dancing shadows across his face, highlighting the sharp angles of his jaw and the deepening lines around his eyes that I had watched appear over the last 5 years. We were in the study, a room that smelled of old leather, mahogany, and the faint scent of the sandalwood cologne he had worn since the day I started working for him. I was holding a dust cloth in my hand, a useless prop really, since the room was already immaculate, but it gave my hand something to do, something to focus on other than the way his voice had changed when he spoke to me moments before. He had called me into the room under the pretense of discussing the winter inventory, a routine task we had gone over a dozen times without issue. But when the door clicked shut behind me, the air in the room shifted, becoming heavy with something unspoken, something urgent. He didn't talk about inventory. He didn't talk about the staff schedules or the heating system or the gala we were hosting next month. He looked at me, really looked at me, with an intensity that made me feel exposed, as if he could see past the uniform I wore, past the professional mask I had perfected over decades of service, and straight into the quiet, guarded place where I kept my own heart safe. He said the words slowly, deliberately, as if weighing each one on a scale before letting it leave his lips. "I don't have long left, Victoria. Come with me." Those were the words. "I don't have long left. Come with me." And then he waited, his hands in his pockets, his posture relaxed but his eyes searching mine for a reaction, for a sign of compliance or fear or love, I wasn't sure which. I stood there, the dust cloth crumpled in my fist, and I felt a coldness spread through my chest, not the heat of anger, but the chill of suspicion. I am 44 years old, and I have lived enough life to know that, when a man with unlimited resources and unlimited power tells you time is running out, it is rarely about mortality. It is usually about leverage. It is usually about control. I looked at him, and I did not let my voice shake. I did not let him see the way my heart hammered against my ribs. I simply nodded once, a small mechanical movement, and I told him I would need to check the schedule, that I would let him know. It was a lie, of course. I had no intention of checking the schedule. I had every intention of finding out what game he was playing. I turned and walked out of the study, closing the door softly behind me, and I walked down the long hallway of the estate, my footsteps silent on the runner carpet, my mind already working, already dissecting the conversation, looking for the flaws, looking for the trap. I have worked for Julian Thorne for 5 years, and in that time, I have learned that he is a man who solves problems with money, with influence, and with a kind of quiet authority that makes people move without questioning why. He is a billionaire in the truest sense, not the kind you see on covers of magazines posing with rockets or cars, but the kind who owns the infrastructure of the city, the kind whose name is on buildings but never in the headlines. He is private, reserved, and until that evening, I believed I understood the boundaries of our relationship. I am the estate manager, though the title on my contract says housekeeper, a distinction that matters little in the daily rhythm of the house, but matters greatly in the way I view myself. I manage the staff, I oversee the maintenance, I ensure that his life runs smoothly so that he can focus on the empire he has built. We have a professional respect, a comfortable silence that fills the rooms when he is home and I am working. We drink coffee in the kitchen sometimes, discussing the weather or the news, but we never cross the line. I know his history, vaguely. I know he was married once, a long time ago, and that it ended without children, without scandal, just a quiet dissolution that left him alone in this massive house. I know he values loyalty above all else. But I also know that men like Julian do not say things like "I don't have long left" unless there is a reason, and men like me, women like me, do not accept invitations like "come with me" without understanding the cost. I am not a romantic fool. I have been married before to a man who loved me in the way that storms love the shore, with violence and erosion, and when that ended, I chose stability. I chose a job where the expectations are clear, where the work is tangible, where I can see the result of my labor in a clean room or a prepared meal. I did not choose this life to be the companion to a dying billionaire. I did not choose this life to be a pity project. So when I walked back to my quarters, the small apartment attached to the main house that is part of my compensation, I did not cry. I did not panic. I locked the door, I poured a glass of water, and I sat at my small desk, and I began to think. The first thing I considered was the possibility of illness. It is the most obvious interpretation of the words, "I don't have long left." If Julian was sick, truly sick, then his request makes a kind of tragic sense. He is alone, he is facing mortality, and he wants someone familiar with him for the end. But if that were the case, why the secrecy? Why say it like a proposition, like a business deal, rather than a confession? If he were dying, he would have doctors, he would have records, he would have a team, and I would know. I manage the household schedules, I coordinate the deliveries, I know when the medical supply vans come to the side entrance. I have seen no such vans. I have seen no specialists parking in the circular driveway. I have seen no change in his diet, no fatigue in his step, no pallor in his skin. He looks healthy. He looks powerful. So if it is not physical illness, what is it? Is it legal trouble? Is he facing indictment? Is he about to lose everything? The phrase "I don't have long left" could mean freedom. It could mean prison. It could mean exile. And "come with me" could mean escape. This felt more plausible, in a way. Men like Julian operate in gray areas. I have heard the whispers on the phone, the hushed conversations in the study when he thinks the walls are thick enough to hold the sound. I have seen the lawyers come and go, the men in dark suits who carry briefcases and leave with tight lips. If he is in trouble, he might want me to leave with him before the net closes. He might want me to be an accomplice, or he might want me to be a witness, or he might simply want me there because I am the only person he trusts not to sell him out. But why tell me like that? Why not just say, "Victoria, I need you to pack a bag"? The ambiguity was the problem. The ambiguity was the weapon. He was testing me. He was seeing if I would follow him blindly, if my loyalty was absolute, or if I would question him. And I am a woman who questions. I am a woman who needs evidence. I decided then that I would not give him an answer immediately. I would buy myself time. In my line of work, patience is a virtue, but it is also a tool. If I wait, if I observe, the truth will reveal itself. People cannot hide everything forever, not even billionaires. They leave trails. They leave papers. They leave patterns. So for the next week, I continued my work as usual. I woke at 6, I checked the staff roster, I inspected the rooms, I managed the vendors. I moved through the house like a ghost, present but unseen, watching Julian with a new kind of attention. I watched how he walked. I watched how he ate. I watched how he held his phone. I looked for tremors in his hands, for signs of pain when he stood up from his desk, for any medication hidden in his drawer. I found nothing. He was consistent. He was steady. But I noticed something else. I noticed that he was wrapping things up. He was signing documents at a frantic pace. He was having meetings with his financial advisors that lasted late into the night. He was selling assets. I knew this because I heard the names of the properties he was divesting. The vineyard in Napa, the penthouse in Chicago, the townhouse in London. He was liquidating. He was turning his empire into cash or into something portable. This supported the theory of exile or escape. If you are running away, you do not want heavy assets. You want liquidity. You want freedom. But where was he going? And why did he want me to come? I began to listen more closely to his phone calls. I know this is invasive. I know this breaches the privacy I am paid to protect. But when a man tells you his time is short and asks you to leave your life behind, you have a right to know why. I am not a spy by nature, but necessity makes spies of us all. I waited until he left for a meeting in the city, a 3-hour window where the house was quiet, and I went into the study. I did not touch his computer. I did not hack his files. I simply looked at the physical papers on his desk, the ones he had left out, the ones he was too rushed to put away. There was a folder labeled Project Horizon. There was a brochure for a facility in Switzerland. There was a letter from a law firm in Zurich. And there was a medical report tucked underneath a stack of invoices, partially hidden. I did not take the papers. I did not photograph them. I simply read them. I read them quickly, my eyes scanning the text, absorbing the key phrases. The medical report was not for Julian. It was for someone else. It was for a woman named Alina. The diagnosis was terminal. Glioblastoma, stage 4. The prognosis was months. The facility in Switzerland was a hospice care center, specialized, private, expensive. The letter from the law firm was about a trust fund, a transfer of assets to a beneficiary. The beneficiary was not me. The beneficiary was Alina. I stepped back from the desk and I felt the air leave the room. I leaned against the mahogany surface to steady myself, so he was not dying. He was not in legal trouble. He was not running from the law, he was leaving because someone else was dying. Alina, who was Alina? A daughter? I thought he had no children. A sister? I had never heard him mention a sister. A former lover. The possibilities spun in my mind, each one more painful than the last. If he has a daughter he never told me about, then I know even less about him than I thought. If he has a former lover who is dying, then his request to me makes a cruel kind of sense. He wants me to come with him to care for her. He wants me to be the nurse, the caretaker, the maid who follows him to the end of the world to clean up the mess of his past. Come with me, not come with me because I love you, not come with me because I want to spend my last days with you, but come with me because I need you to do a job. The coldness in my chest turned into a hard knot of resentment. I had respected him. I had admired his integrity. I had thought, perhaps in the quiet moments, that there was something more between us, a mutual understanding that went beyond employer and employee. But this proved that I was just staff. I was just a tool to be used when the situation required it. I straightened my jacket. I put the papers back exactly where I found them. I smoothed the edges. I made sure no one would know I had been there. And I walked out of the study, my head high, my face neutral. I went back to my apartment, and I sat down, and I allowed myself to feel the hurt. I allowed myself to feel the betrayal, but I did not let it consume me. I did not let it make me reckless. I needed more information. I needed to know who Alina was. I needed to know if my assessment was correct. Because if I was wrong, if I quit based on a misunderstanding, I would lose the best job I have ever had, and I would lose the respect I have built here. But if I was right, I needed to protect myself. I needed to decide if I was willing to be the person who holds the hand of a stranger while the man I care about watches. The next day, I did something I had never done before. I used my lunch break to drive into the nearby town to the local records office. I know it sounds extreme, but I needed to confirm the existence of this Alina. I knew Julian's full name, his date of birth, his history. I searched for marriage records, for birth certificates, for any public link to a woman named Alina Thorne. I found nothing. There was no wife, there was no daughter, there was no sister. This deepened the mystery. If she is not family, who is she? And why is he liquidating his entire life for her? I drove back to the estate, my mind racing. That evening, Julian called me to the study again. He was standing by the window, looking out at the rain which had returned, a steady gray sheet against the glass. He turned when I entered. He looked tired, not physically exhausted, but weary in a way that settles in the bones. He asked me if I had thought about his proposal. I looked at him, and I decided to be direct. I decided to use the intelligence I had gathered not as a weapon, but as a mirror. I told him, I know about Alina. I saw the name on the desk. I saw the medical reports. I saw the facility in Switzerland. I told him I knew he was planning to leave. I told him I knew he was selling the assets. I stood there, waiting for the denial, waiting for the anger, waiting for him to fire me for invading his privacy. But he did not get angry. He did not deny it. He simply looked at me, and his expression softened, the hardness melting away into something that looked like relief. He walked over to his desk and he sat down, gesturing for me to sit as well. This was unprecedented. He never asked me to sit in the study. He said, "You found the papers." I said, "Yes." He said, "And you still came to work today." I said, "I am a professional, Julian. I do my job until I am told otherwise." He nodded. He looked at his hands. He said, "Alina is not my daughter. She is not my sister. She is not my lover." I waited. He took a breath. He said, "Alina is my responsibility. She was my assistant 20 years ago. She worked for me when I was building the firm. She was brilliant, she was loyal, and she saved my life." I frowned. I asked him what he meant. He told me a story. 20 years ago, he was in a car accident, a serious one. He was trapped in the wreckage. Alina was the one who pulled him out. She was injured in the process. She suffered damage to her spine, damage that never fully healed. She lost her career. She lost her mobility. He set her up with a trust fund, yes, but he felt a debt, a moral debt. He said, I have watched her struggle for 2 decades. I have paid for the best care, but the care is not enough. The doctors say she has months. She wants to go to Switzerland. She wants to end it on her terms, and I cannot let her go alone. I cannot let her die in a facility without someone who knows her, someone who knows what she sacrificed for me. I looked at him, and I saw the truth in his eyes. It was not a lie. It was not a manipulation. It was guilt. It was honor. It was a man trying to balance a ledger that had been open for 20 years. But then I asked the question that mattered. I asked, why did you ask me to come? Why did you say I don't have long left? He looked at me, and for the first time I saw vulnerability. He said, because I don't, not in the way you think. I am not sick, Victoria, but I am done. I am done with the business. I am done with the city. I am done with the life I have built. When Alina goes, a part of me goes with her. The part that cares about ambition, the part that cares about power. I want to leave too. I want to disappear. And I asked you to come with me because I cannot imagine doing it alone. I do not want you to care for Alina. I have nurses for that. I want you to come with me because you are the only person in this house who feels real. You are the only person who doesn't want anything from me. I sat there, listening to him, and I felt the knot in my chest begin to loosen. I had been so focused on the possibility of betrayal, on the possibility that I was being used, that I had not considered the possibility that he was lonely. I had not considered that beneath the billions and the power, there was a man who was carrying a burden of guilt and was looking for a companion to share the silence. I had interpreted his words through the lens of my own fears. I had heard I don't have long left and thought he was dying or dying professionally. I had heard come with me and thought he wanted a servant, but he was saying something else. He was saying, I am leaving my old life behind and I want you in the new one. He was asking for partnership. He was asking for trust. But the misunderstanding had already done damage. I had invaded his privacy. I had suspected him. I had judged him based on incomplete information. I needed to address that. I told him, I looked at your papers, Julian. I broke your trust. He said, I know. I said, I thought you were asking me to be a nurse. I thought you were hiding a daughter. I thought you were using me. He said, I understand why you thought that. I haven't been clear. I haven't been honest about how I feel. I haven't been honest about how much I rely on you. He stood up and walked around the desk. He stopped a few feet from me. He said, I didn't tell you about Alina because I didn't want you to feel like you were second choice. I didn't tell you about my plans because I was afraid you would say no. I was afraid you would see this as an obligation. I looked at him, and I realized that we were both guarded. We were both protecting ourselves. He with his silence, me with my suspicion. We were two people who had been hurt by life, standing in a room full of money, afraid to be vulnerable. I took a breath. I told him, I need time. I need to think about this. He nodded. He said, take all the time you need. I am not going anywhere for another week. I stood up. I told him I will let you know by Friday. I walked out of the study, and this time the coldness was gone. The suspicion was gone. But I still had decisions to make. I could not just say yes because I felt bad for him. I could not say yes because I was lonely too. I had to say yes because it was the right thing for me. I had to evaluate my own life. I am 44, I have no children, I have no husband. I have this job which I am good at, but is it enough? Is this all I want? To manage a house for a man who is leaving the country? To follow him into the unknown? Or is this an opportunity to finally stop serving and start living? The next few days were a blur of introspection. I continued my work, but my mind was elsewhere. I walked through the gardens. I sat in the library. I thought about my past. I thought about the marriage that failed because I was too independent, because I refused to be dependent on a man who couldn't handle my strength. I thought about the years I spent building my career, only to realize that I was tired of the climb. I wanted peace. I wanted meaning. And Julian was offering me a chance to find both, but on his terms. Or were they his terms? He had asked me, he had not commanded me, that was the difference. He had given me the choice. That was the respect I had been looking for. I started to look at the situation differently. If I go with him, I am not going as a maid. I am going as a partner. I need to make sure he understands that. I need to make sure the dynamic changes. I cannot be the employee in Switzerland. I cannot be the staff. I need to be the equal. So I began to prepare my own proposal. I did not write it down. I formulated it in my mind. I thought about what I would need. I thought about what I would give. I thought about the boundaries. On Thursday evening, I called my lawyer. I have a lawyer who handles my personal affairs, a woman named Sarah who knows me well. I told her the situation. I told her about the offer. I asked her what I needed to do to protect myself. She told me to get everything in writing. She told me to negotiate a severance that reflects the change in relationship. She told me to ensure that I have my own autonomy. I listened to her advice. I realized that love is not enough. Trust is not enough. You need structure. You need clarity. So on Friday morning, I went to the study. Julian was there, waiting. He looked up when I entered. He looked hopeful but cautious. I sat down. I did not smile. I did not frown. I was calm. I said, "I will come with you." He let out a breath, a long exhale that seemed to release weeks of tension. But I held up my hand. I said, "There are conditions." He nodded. He said, "Name them." I said, "I am not coming as your employee. I am coming as your companion. My role changes. I am not managing the house. I am not managing the staff. We are going to find a new place, and we will run it together. Or we will hire someone to run it. I am not working for you anymore." He said, "I understand." I said, "I want my own money. I want the severance package we discussed, plus a share of the liquidated assets. Not because I want your money, but because I want to know that I am there by choice, not by necessity. I want to know that I can leave if I want to." He said, "Done." I said, "And I want the truth. From now on, no more secrets. If you are sick, you tell me. If you are in trouble, you tell me. If you are hurting, you tell me." He looked at me and his eyes were wet. He said, "I promise." I said, "Good. Then we can go." The preparation for the departure was chaotic, but it was a good chaos. It was the chaos of change. Julian's team worked tirelessly to sell the properties, to transfer the funds, to arrange the transport. I oversaw the packing of the personal items, but I delegated the logistics to the professionals. I was stepping back from the role of manager. I was stepping into the role of partner. It felt strange at first. I was used to telling people what to do. I was used to checking the lists. Now I was walking through the house, saying goodbye to the rooms, to the halls, to the life I had known. I felt a sense of loss, yes. This house had been my sanctuary. It had been my proof that I could survive, that I could build a stable life. But I realized that stability is not a place. It is a person. It is a feeling. And I had found that with Julian, in the quiet moments, in the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching. We left on a Tuesday. The rain had stopped. The sky was clear. We drove to the private airfield in a car that was not armored for the first time in years. We flew to Zurich. From there, we took a train to the facility where Alina was staying. I met her that afternoon. She was small, fragile, but her eyes were sharp. She looked at me and she smiled. She said, "So you are Victoria. Julian talks about you." I was surprised. I asked, "He does?" She said, "All the time. He says you are the only one who keeps him grounded." I sat by her bed. We talked. She told me about the accident. She told me about the pain. She told me that she was ready to go. She was not afraid. She was at peace. And seeing her there, seeing the closure that Julian was seeking, I understood why he needed to do this. It was not just about guilt. It was about honoring a debt. It was about being a good man, and I wanted to be with a good man. We stayed in Switzerland for 3 weeks. Alina passed away peacefully, with Julian holding her hand and me sitting in the corner, reading a book, present but giving them space. It was a sad time, but it was not a dark time. It was a time of resolution. After the funeral, we did not go back to the estate. We did not go back to the US. We went to a small village in the Italian lakes. Julian had bought a villa there, a modest place compared to the estate, but beautiful. It overlooked the water. It was quiet. It was ours. The first month in Italy was an adjustment. We were no longer employer and employee. We were two people sharing a space. We had to learn how to be together without the structure of work. We had to learn how to talk about the small things. What do we want for dinner? Where do we want to walk? Who is going to buy the groceries? In the beginning, I fell back into old habits. I found myself checking the cleanliness of the rooms. I found myself organizing the pantry. Julian noticed. He stopped me one morning. He took the dust cloth from my hand. He said, "You don't have to do that." I said, "It's what I do." He said, "Not anymore. Now you are Victoria. Now you are just you. It was hard to let go. It was hard to believe that I was allowed to just be. But slowly, I began to relax. I began to paint. I had not painted in 20 years. I bought some canvases. I set up a studio in the spare room. Julian watched me. He didn't offer advice. He just watched. He started writing. He had always wanted to write a memoir, but he never had the time. Now he had the time. We would sit in the evenings, me with my paints, him with his laptop, and we would work in silence. It was a comfortable silence. It was the silence of two people who know each other well, but we still had things to resolve. We still had the history of the misunderstanding. We still had the walls we had built. One evening after dinner, we sat on the terrace. The sun was setting over the lake. The water was gold. Julian looked at me. He said, "I need to apologize again." I said, "For what?" He said, "For making you feel like you were an option. For making you feel like you were staff." I said, "You didn't know how to ask. You are not used to asking. You are used to commanding." He said, "I am learning." I said, "I know." He reached out and took my hand. His hand was warm. His grip was firm. He said, "I love you, Victoria. I have loved you for a long time." I was afraid to say it. I was afraid it would change things. I said, "It has changed things." He asked, "Is that bad?" I looked at our hands. I looked at the lake. I looked at the life we had built. I said, "No, it is good. It is real. I love you too, Julian. I think I have for a while. I just didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to risk what I had." He squeezed my hand. He said, "We don't have to risk it anymore. We are here. We are safe. We are together." The healing was not instant. It was a process. There were days when I felt insecure. There were days when he felt guilty about Alina. There were days when the past crept in. But we talked. We used the tools we had learned. We used communication. We used truth. When I felt insecure, I told him. When he felt guilty, he told me. We did not let the feelings fester. We did not let them turn into resentment. We addressed them. We resolved them. And with every resolution, the bond grew stronger. We traveled. We went to France. We went to Spain. We spent time in the city and time in the country. We met new people. We made new friends. But we always came back to the villa. We always came back to each other. I realized that the title of Maid was something I had worn like a shield. It protected me from expectations. It protected me from hurt, but I didn't need the shield anymore. I could be vulnerable. I could be loved. And Julian realized that he didn't need to be the billionaire. He didn't need to be the provider. He could just be a man. He could just be a partner. We found a balance. We found a rhythm, and it was beautiful. 1 year later, we were sitting on the terrace again. It was spring. The flowers were blooming, the air smelled of jasmine. Julian put down his book. He looked at me. He said, "Do you remember what I said to you?" "In the study?" I said, "I remember." He said, "I said I don't have long left." I nodded. He said, "I was wrong. I have a long time left. We have a long time left." I smiled. I said, "You were right about one thing." He asked, "What?" I said, "I did come with you." He laughed. It was a genuine laugh, a sound I loved. He said, "And I am glad you did." I said, "Me too." We sat there, watching the sun go down. We did not need to say anything else. The words were unnecessary. The understanding was complete. We had navigated the misunderstanding. We had found the truth. We had restored the trust. And we were happy. Looking back on that evening in the study, I realize now that it was the turning point. It was the moment where everything could have gone wrong. It was the moment where fear could have won. But I chose clarity. I chose to investigate. I chose to speak. I chose to set boundaries. And because I did, we found our way to each other. It was not easy. It was not simple. But it was worth it. I am not the maid anymore. I am not the employee. I am Victoria. And I am loved. And that is enough. That is more than enough. The rain has stopped. The sky is clear. And I am here. I am whole. And I am not afraid. I know who I am. I know who he is. And I know what we have. It is not perfect. Nothing is perfect, but it is real, and it is ours. There are moments when I think about the estate. I think about the staff. I wonder if they are okay. I send cards. I keep in touch. But I do not miss the work. I do not miss the hierarchy. I miss the purpose, but I have found a new purpose. I paint, I write, I live, and I love. Julian and I talk about the future. We talk about growing old. We talk about traveling more. We talk about maybe adopting a dog. We talk about everything. There are no more taboos. There are no more secrets. We have opened the doors. We have let the light in. And it is warm. It is so warm. I remember the coldness I felt that night. I remember the suspicion. It seems like a lifetime ago. It seems like it happened to someone else. Maybe it did. Maybe the woman who walked out of that study was different. Maybe she had to be that woman to become this woman. Maybe she had to be guarded to learn how to be open. Maybe she had to be strong to learn how to be soft. I do not regret the pain. I do not regret the fear. It was part of the journey. It was part of the story. And I am glad I am here to tell it. I am glad I am here to live it. Julian stands up. He stretches. He offers me his hand. He says, "Come on. Let's go inside. It's getting cool." I take his hand. I stand up. We walk inside together. We leave the terrace. We leave the sunset, but we take the warmth with us. We take the love with us. We walk into the house, our house, and we close the door. And we are safe. And we are together. And that is all that matters. That is the only thing that matters. The money is gone. The empire is gone. The title is gone. But we are here. And we are enough. We are more than enough. I look at him. He looks at me. We smile. And we know everything is going to be okay. We know everything is already okay. And we walk into the kitchen to make dinner. Together. Side by side. Equal, partners, love. The narrative of our life is not written in contracts. It is not written in bank statements. It is written in the small moments. It is written in the way he pours my coffee. It is written in the way I fold his shirts. It is written in the way we listen to each other. It is written in the way we forgive. It is written in the way we choose each other every day. Again and again, I choose him. He chooses me. And that is the story. That is the truth. That is the resolution. I don't have long left was a lie. I have forever left. And I am spending it with him. And I am happy. I am so happy. The rain is gone. The sun is shining. And I am free. Free to love. Free to be. Free to live. And I would not change a thing. Not the pain, not the fear, not the misunderstanding, because it led me here. It led me to him. It led me to myself. And I am grateful. I am deeply grateful for everything, for the journey, for the destination, for the love. So if you are listening to this, if you are hearing my voice, know this. Do not be afraid of the truth. Do not be afraid of the questions. Do not be afraid of the misunderstanding. Seek the clarity. Seek the evidence. Seek the communication. It is worth it. It is always worth it. Love is not about blind faith. Love is about seeing clearly. Love is about knowing the truth and choosing to stay. Love is about trust. And trust is built on honesty. So be honest, be brave. Be open, and you will find your way, you will find your person, you will find your home. It might not look like you expect, it might not sound like you expect, but it will be real, and it will be yours, just like this is mine, just like this is ours. Victoria and Julian, together, finally and forever. The wind blows through the open window. It carries the scent of the lake. It carries the scent of the flowers. It carries the scent of the future. I breathe it in. I hold it in my lungs, I let it fill me. I am alive, I am loved, I am home. And that is the end of the story, or perhaps the beginning. It does not matter. The only thing that matters is now, and now is good. Now is beautiful, now is enough. I close my eyes. I feel his hand in mine. I feel the beat of his heart. I feel the rhythm of our life. And I smile. I smile because I know everything is going to be okay. I know everything is already okay. And I am at peace. I am at peace. The light fades. The stars come out. The night is quiet. We sit in the living room. We do not turn on the television. We do not turn on the lights. We sit in the dark. We talk. We whisper. We share our thoughts. We share our dreams. We share our souls, and it is enough. It is more than enough. It is everything. I look at him. He looks at me. We do not need words. We know everything. And we are happy. We are so happy. And that is the truth. That is the only truth. Love wins, trust wins, truth wins, and we win. Together. I remember the day I walked into the study for the first time. I was nervous. I was unsure. I was guarded. I remember the day I walked out. I was determined. I was strong. I was clear. And I remember the day I came back. I was open. I was vulnerable. I was ready. And now I am here. I am whole. I am complete. And I am loved. And that is all I need. That is all I ever needed. The rest is just noise. The rest is just detail. The love is the thing. The love is the story. And the story is good. The story is beautiful. And I am glad I am part of it. I am glad I am part of us. Julian speaks. He says, "Are you tired?" I say a little. He says, let's go to bed. I say, okay. We stand up, we walk to the bedroom. We get ready for sleep. We climb into bed. We pull up the covers. We turn off the light. We lie in the dark. He takes my hand. He holds it. I hold it back. We breathe. We sleep. And we dream, and the dreams are good. The dreams are of us, of the future, of the life we have built, of the love we have found. And when we wake up, it will be morning. It will be a new day, and we will do it again. We will choose each other again. And again, until the end. And the end will be far away, because we have time. We have all the time in the world, and we will use it well. We will use it wisely. We will use it lovingly. And that is the promise. That is the vow. That is the life, and I am ready. I am so ready. Good night. Good night, Julian. Good night, love. Good night, life. Good night, world. We are here. We are safe. We are home, and we are happy, and that is enough. That is everything. The end, or the beginning. It does not matter. We are together, and that is all that matters. Forever.